We have seen so many people come to faith in Jesus Christ, and something as small as a chicken or a honeybee is that entry point that ultimately leads to a salvation of a soul. We learn in Genesis, that we have dignity because that man and women were created in the image of God. And so from that place, we recognize that every person that we interact with is created in the image of God. They're image bearers.
How can something as simple as honeybees or baby chicks change lives? Well, today I'm going to tell you how. I want to share a conversation I had with Matt Nowery, the country director for our Samaritan's Purse office in Iraq. In a difficult place for ministry, our teams are getting to share the love of Jesus Christ through seemingly small animals and insects. I'm Kristy Graham, your host of On the Ground with Samaritan's Purse, where we take you to the front lines and behind the scenes of our work around the world. These honeybee and baby chick programs, they can be found in the Samaritan's Purse Christmas catalog. And they not only provide an income, but they give a reason, a purpose, and dignity for people that have lost hope. As you listen to this episode, I want to ask you this question. What is a unique avenue that the Lord could use mightily in your life to share his love with others? Let's jump right into my conversation with Matt. I think whenever we come to the Christmas catalog and we that's when people, I think, see the importance of these projects. But I want you to maybe share why they're in there, why they're so important. I thought of James, 2, where it says, be doers of the word, not hearers. And I think they parallel our spiritual walk with the Lord, right? We're not just supposed to read his word, keep it to ourselves, and do nothing with it. Jesus tells us, to share the gospel, take it to the ends of the earth. So I think these livelihood programs are a lot like our spiritual discipline. We are to teach and share and help that to be a ripple effect and ongoing. And I think when you give somebody a chick or help them learn how to harvest honey, it is an ongoing, sustainable discipline, I guess. And as you said, many of them are in agriculture, so they already knew how to do a lot of these things. But sometimes we are teaching livelihood projects. And I think that's what Samaritan's Purse, that's what we don't want to do. We don't want to just give a brochure or a pamphlet and maybe a cup of water and say, good luck. We want to walk with them. It's a relational ministry there. So I guess let's talk about the honey, because I know you've told me a long time ago, you said it's the best honey you've ever had. So it's good quality, but it does more than that. It helps people build a livelihood.
I know I am biased, but I do believe that Iraqi honey is the best in all the land. That said, if you'll allow me just a second to maybe, if you could, Kristy, step into these remote villages out in Sinjar, out in northwest Iraq, you would find destroyed villages. Most of the homes are still destroyed. Families are still living either in tents or in mud homes, mud-walled, grass-thatched roof homes. There's no real opportunity or very little opportunity for employment. Many Yazidi families lost a loved one to ISIS. They were killed when ISIS overran their village and their towns. And so there's a lot of hurt and trauma that they carry from that war. And so just with that in mind, understanding that people are very impoverished and it is a very remote area in Iraq. It is not easy to access. And so God opened the door, and I think it's very important. It's been very clear to us from the beginning that this was something that God had for us. And specific to the honeybee programming, if you can understand, that these families don't have an income, they don't have a job. And so they are therefore having a really hard time putting food on the table for their kids. And these are large families. Often we love to work with widows whose husbands were killed by ISIS, who truly don't have an opportunity to go into the market or into town and get a job. And so these specific honeybee programs have so many tangible effects for the positive for the families out in Sinjar. We began our Honeybee programming in 2017. And so we've been able to work with over 200 families since we started this programming with just incredible success. Earlier this year, our team were running assessments trying to identify who our beneficiaries would be to select for this bee program this year. And they came across this family. And the husband's name is Ibrahim. He's a 25-year-old Yazidi, and he's nonverbal, doesn't have the ability to communicate verbally. And his wife is blind. And so you could imagine the challenges that the two of them face in a place remote like Sinjar. They have two young daughters that I would say are probably 4 and 6 years old, around that age. And so our team just felt like we could help. The need is enormous, and we wish we could help everybody, but we can't. But we felt like God had brought us to Ibrahim and to his wife and to his family. And it has been absolutely remarkable to, throughout the rest of this year, the course of this year, watch how, first we've trained he and his wife how to take care of these bees. We equip our beneficiaries with 4 hives and everything they need. So a starter kit, if you will, for honeybees. With the bees themselves in the hives, we give them food. They're in the classroom. We bring them in for just a skilled training to make sure they understand. And then we have a team that follows up with them and walks with them for several months to make sure, until we're confident that they know what they're doing. And Ibrahim thrived. I mean, he was just one of these guys that as soon as he got his bees and understood that they need flowers to thrive, we found that he was planting just various flowering trees and plants around his house and his garden. And he's had 2 harvests this year that he's actually set the record for Sinjar for how many kilos of honey his 4 hives produced. And it's providing dignity. Ibrahim now he's making his own income for his family, and he's able to take his wife to the doctor when she needs medical attention. His 2 daughters are able to go to school now because he has an income. These were things that Ibrahim and his family weren't able to access before this program. And so even though he's unable to verbally communicate with us, you can see the look in his eyes. When I've sat with him and met with him, you can see in his eyes the dignity that's been restored, that he's able to take care of his wife and his 2 young daughters has been a game changer. And so that's one way that we see our beneficiaries thrive, when we're able to help them with a livelihood project like Honeybees.
That is incredible. I love that this is such a relationship, because I'm sure in the first, several months, there's a lot of training, a lot of interaction, and then it decreases a little bit. But it sounds like you built relationships with these beneficiaries.
Absolutely. And Kristy, we keep in contact with all of our beneficiaries. We have a team that is dedicated to following up with our previous beneficiaries from years past.
Wow.
We are a highly relational office. We believe, and it's been our experience over 15 years here, God has taught us that any meaningful spiritual conversation here happens after having the trust in a relationship, becoming friends. And so that's hard earned in Iraq, and it takes time, but it's something that we're committed to. And so we do walk with Ibrahim, his family. We will walk with them, Lord willing, for years. It's Proverbs 24:13. If I could just read that, it says, "Eat honey, my son, for it is good. Honey from the comb is sweet to your taste. Know also that wisdom is like honey for you. If you find it, there is a future hope for you, and your hope will not be cut off." And in our Samaritan's Pursuit Rock vision statement, we say dignity restored communities revived, and hope renewed in Jesus' name. And so this is where we know what that eternal hope is, and it's found in Jesus Christ. And so as we walk with Ibrahim and all of the other beneficiaries that are a part of our Honeybee program, ultimately, this is an avenue to help them restart their lives after ISIS devastated them. Help them provide an income for their families. And that is creating a very unique opportunity and trust and relationship for our Samaritan's Purse teammates that are able to sit in their homes and share the gospel with guys like Ibrahim.
And I do love that Samaritan's Purse, we will stay as long as there's a need. And relationships take time, like you said. And in your region, I think it takes longer, and I think of Galatians 6:9 when I think of you, do not grow weary in doing good. You will reap a harvest. And sometimes we don't even see it here on earth. It will be eternity that we see the harvest that you've reaped. And so we can't, like you said, it is sad when everybody floods, the news is highlighting a certain area, everybody cares, and then they move on because there's another crisis. And unfortunately, there are disasters everywhere. But I love that you guys have remained. And even as you talk about ISIS coming through in 2014, that isn't fixed in a year, and I'm sure you can testify, the wounds are still there. It will be there for hundreds of years, that will impact generations. And so I love that, like you said, we want to stay long-term. Can we talk about the chicks too? I think like the honey, it is a sustainable, ongoing project. So talk about why it's important and why in your area we need this.
It was really fascinating how chicken programming came into the Samaritan's Purse Iraq office. So we run a mental health program here called Hope and Healing. It's focused on the Yazidi people group out in Sinjar. And again, the Yazidis have faced enormous trauma. This is an ongoing trauma. There's still over 2,000 Yazidi women that the world doesn't know where they are. They're actively being trafficked or they've been killed and the families haven't been made aware. And so this is an ongoing issue. When you return after living in a refugee camp for a few years in northern Iraq in the Kurdish-controlled region after fleeing from ISIS, and you return back to your village in Sinjar and your home is destroyed, when you don't have an income, a job, when your husband has been killed by ISIS. And so we are very serious about mental health programming out in Sinjar. And we have interventions. We have hired a psychiatrist. We provide, psychiatric visits. We provide medication. We have therapy groups. And one of the things as we were programming over the last few years, we realized was a lot of the Yazidis that we were interacting with were depressed. Because again, they're still sitting, in a destroyed home without a job, nothing to do all day, and didn't have much hope. And so the team had the idea that we need to provide them with something that will take their mind off of how tough life has been. And out of that, in hours of conversation, came the idea of providing them with chickens, with baby chicks. And the last couple of years, I cannot tell you how many families I've sat with widows who were truly depressed, considering suicide. And with a small, we would say, simple gift of giving them 10 or 20 little chickens, it gave them purpose for their day. It gave them something to wake up for and take care of. And one of the remarkable things that we've seen in this too is it's a whole of family approach, So when we say that the beneficiary, we've identified a widow whose husband was killed by ISIS and she has 4 or 5 children and doesn't have an income. What we found is all of the kids, everybody's invested in the well-being of these chickens. And so they raise these chickens. I mean, they care for them. I have never before seen somebody pick up chickens and feed them by hand, but it is often the case in Sinjar when you sit with our beneficiaries. They've named them. They pick them up. I mean, they're comfortable with them. They feed them by hand. It's their babies, and so these chickens are being cared for, maybe better than any other chickens in the world. And so we've seen that it's provided. Again, this was part of our mental health programming, and so what it's done is it has given men and women something to occupy their time and care for. And so we're seeing just incredible results on the mental health side. And so most of our mental health beneficiaries now are a part of this additional poultry component of the program. This year, we'll work with 54 families. And again, we say families there, not beneficiaries, because we've noticed that it's a whole of family. Everybody's invested in these chickens, and they all take care of them, and it provides they're able to raise them and sell them. These are broilers, and so they're able to sell them and make an income. And the stories of being able to put your kids in school, you're able to afford school fees for the first time in years because you now have been able to raise these chickens and sell them. And so it's been extremely encouraging. Again, another wonderful opportunity to be in their homes, in the Yazidis' homes, and just remind them ultimately that Jesus knows who they are and Jesus loves them.
That is incredible. Can you give, like, even when you were talking about the honey, you gave them like a kit, basically, you said, and then instructed them and trained them on how to harvest and how to do it, make sure that it's sustainable. How does it work with the chicks? You give them chicks? Do you build coops? I mean, what all do you give these families in order to make this possible?
Each of the families this year, the 54 families will receive 10 chickens. And we will provide all of the training. So the first couple of months are heavy on the training on the front end. We bring in veterinarians that teach them the importance of vaccinations, feed. We connect them with vendors, local vendors in their villages or the nearest town that sells chicken feed. We provide the feed necessary for the first several months. And again, we have a team that will follow up with them. So we talk about coops. Some of them have a room in their house where the chickens live inside their own home. There's other families that if they're living in a tent, they don't have a place for them. And so Samaritan's Purse, in those instances, will come alongside them and help build them just a very small, simple coop. We provide them with all of the inputs that they need to be successful. And then again, we will follow them until we have a very good technical team with livestock. And so they are able to follow up with these families weekly to make sure the chickens are being cared for, that they have what they need, that they're healthy. And if there's any issues that arise, any illnesses in the chickens, again, we have a vet that we're able to bring out and address those needs.
That's awesome, because I know they are a lot of work. I know my kids ask for chickens all the time. But I love that, we walk alongside, and again, we don't just give handouts where somebody's going to fail. We want them to succeed, and that requires instruction, education, and it's the same thing spiritually. You can't just expect somebody to grow without helping to disciple. And so again, I love that there's a spiritual impact and then the physical impact, both, in discipling and teaching them how to be successful. Can you give a story? Because I loved hearing about Abraham. And again, I'm not going to take my honey and my coffee the same again, because I'm going to think directly of these families. Yeah,
who comes to mind, Kristy, is Rhonda. Rhonda is probably 55 years old. She lives on the north side of Sinjar Mountain, and like all of the other Yazidis, fled when ISIS came into town. Her husband was killed, and so she was made a widow. They have 3 children. She found herself in northern Iraq in a camp. lived there for a few years before returning to Sinjar, to the north of the mountain of Sinjar. And when our team met Rhonda, it was because she was suicidal. She had given up hope. She didn't know how she was going to care for her kids. She really missed her husband. And it just seemed like life was really, really bleak. And so our team quickly swooped in. We're able to get her in front of the psychiatrist and have those mental health assessments run, provide the medication that she needed. Rhonda lived in it's a mud home, again, mud walls, grass thatch roof, very simple structure. And so once we were able to get her the proper medication and her mental health was able to stabilize, we were able to help her both with goat programming and with chickens. And the chickens are her babies. I mean, these chickens, she's turned 10 chickens into easily over 80 chickens now that she's got with her 3 children that they're taking care of. And it's God's providence that we met Rhonda, but she was hanging on to a thread and ready to take her own life, and just didn't, there's not mental health services in an area like Sinjar. And so I'm grateful to God that we were able to come alongside of her, get her the medical care that she needed, get her the medication that she needed, provide her with this hope. Again, you can say, what in the world, 10 chickens can't provide too much hope. It makes all the difference in the world to so many of these Yazidi families in Sinjar. She's a changed woman when you sit there in her home and you can see the joy in her eyes, and she's proud of her children. Her children are going to school and they have hope for a future. And so they are slowly rebuilding their lives. And again, chickens played a huge role in that turnaround for Rhonda. And this is one story. We could talk for hours. There's so many individual stories of life change from chickens. And again, when we sit and have tea, we are taking every opportunity we can to point them to true everlasting hope, to Jesus Christ. And so, yeah, I think, again, Sinjar is devastated. It's, as you said, rightfully, it's going to take years and years to recover fully. But Psalms 27:13 is a verse that our team has clung to quite a bit because again, it's a mountain of challenges before us. But we hold to God's promises. Psalms 27:13, I would have lost heart unless I had believed that I would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. And in spite of everything wicked that ISIS did, all of the death, all of the destruction of livelihoods and homes, shelter, our team is seeing the goodness of God in the land of the living in Sinjar. We have seen so many people come to faith in Jesus Christ, and something as small as a chicken or a honeybee is that entry point that ultimately leads to a salvation of a soul. We learn in Genesis, that we have dignity because that man and women were created in the image of God. And so from that place, we recognize that every person that we interact with is created in the image of God. They're image bearers, and therefore they have immense value to God. And so, the days are long, they're tough, they're dusty. We haven't seen rain in months. We've got insecurity challenges, access issues. I mean, the list goes on. But make no mistake about it, we are not losing heart. Like we have seen and do see the goodness of God in the land of the living in Sinjar. And so we just believe wholeheartedly, as God opened this door for us in a very unique way, he's continued to leave that door open. And so we want to make the most of this opportunity through these honeybees and through these chickens. Again, these families that are now, making $100, $200 a month. it's everything for them. It's provided them with dignity. And if you can understand when somebody comes along, when you're in the ditch in life and they put their arm around you and say, hey, we'll help you get restarted in life. That's what God's allowed us, the awesome privilege, Samaritans Percy Rock, to do. And by God's grace and goodness, many are coming to faith in him.
These stories bring me to tears. I love hearing about Abraham and Rhonda. These stories have touched my life. And it's incredible that these seemingly small gifts, like the ones that Matt talked about, how they can change lives. Please pray for our teams on the ground in Iraq that are teaching, discipling, and serving these communities. I love that they get to sit down in their homes. They get to see the difference these projects make. They get to build relationships and disciple and be a part of the Lord's work. They are truly making eternal impacts. And I encourage you this season to think of ways to give through the Christmas catalog. I know that I am. I'm actually doing the Honeybee project for all of my kids' teachers. And then I bought some local honey to go along with it. I'm excited to introduce them to these projects. You can check out the Christmas catalog on SamaritansPurse.org/explore. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great week.